doing diversity and inclusion, sexual harassment, anti-bullying, ergonomics.
All things that are not in the news these days.
Right.
You know? So,
right. So it's just
we've
like,
all trained perfectly on all those topics.
Right.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, whenever you may be listening. This is Latitude, the 43 North podcast. I'm your host, Nate Benson, digital media manager here at 43 North, the $5 million startup competition, and we love talking to startup founders. And we've got a startup founder in the room with us today, Derrick Parson. How are you today?
I'm good. Glad to be here with you today, man.
I will not steal your thunder. Tell us what your startup is and what you guys do.
The startup is called Graspie, and we're the first, or we want to be the first mobile platform for learning and engagement of the millennial workforce.
Ooh, very specific.
Yeah, very, very specific, and there's a reason for that. So,
are you a millennial yourself?
I am what I like to call myself a zennial. So I go by Goldman Sachs. Their specs, they call millennials starting out at 1980, which is where I was born.
Okay.
1980.
I've seen like 80, 82,
right,
83.
Exactly. So most people, most other places are write-ups are usually 82.
Yeah.
So they always end at 79 and then start at 82.
Yeah.
So 80 and 81, you're just like,
lumped in there.
yeah, like, who are you guys?
Yeah, right.
We don't know you.
We have no identity.
Right. So what I realized is if you was technically we're the older millennials.
Sure, yeah.
So what I realized is a lot of people do have those characteristics of still that Generation X and that millennial as well too. Because we actually grew up in and saw the progression of technology, right? Yeah. So from having a computer to being on AOL AIM, LimeWire, Napster, like we've seen it. I literally have every device that I've used up to a beeper. So, I mean, we are really the tech baby.
Yeah.
So,
I remember in high school, I got for Christmas one year a Palm Pilot, and I was in high school. I'm like, I have no reason to have this. This is awesome. and that's when gadgets were like,
right,
every gadget for everything. Now there's just an iPhone or a Galaxy, and you're like, all right, it does everything.
Like,
it's one thing, but that was the age of gadgets, which I miss desperately.
Absolutely. So
I'm 85, so I'm in the millennial phase, but I'm also an old man at heart. So I always like, those damn millennials, get off my lawn.
Yeah.
But now the conception that everyone will tell you is millennials are the laziest generation ever.
Right.
So why are you trying to get them to work?
Well, it's not trying to get them to work, but it's more so getting the companies, the businesses to understand that they learn differently.
Sure.
Right. And it's no different than the silent generation looking down upon the baby boomers, the baby boomers on the Generation X's.
Yeah.
It's
the new generation is always the worst.
Right. Exactly. And so you have Generation Z is what they're calling it now. And, everybody's like, oh my God, what's going to happen with them? But my background is in educational technology and distance learning.
That was my next question. You're ahead of it.
Right. So got it at the University of Buffalo. Go Bulls, of course. And with that, you learn cognitive, you learn fundamental theories behind education, why people learn, how people learn, styles of learning, pedagogy, everything, right? Mm-hmm. So then you think about it, millennials are learning differently. And so if they're learning differently, shouldn't they be taught or trained differently in the workplace? And so that's where it started, right? And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make that huge shift. Mm-hmm. It's where it's going. Millennials will be in the workforce right now. About 2020, which is only 2 years away. Millennials will be 51 to 55% of the workforce. Okay. By 2030, they're slated to be 75% of the workforce. But yet we're still using binders and videos from 1970, and so that's what we're trying to do.
So I know you just mentioned your background. So what led you to the startup life, so to speak? Were you always an entrepreneur at heart, or were you did you do corporate life? Realize being a millennial, like I can't deal with the binders. I have to do something else.
Right. No, it's interesting because I guess I would say I was an entrepreneur. I've always had that entrepreneurial spirit. Never really tapped into it. Started out my educational career as a dual major, aerospace and mechanical at UB.
Okay.
That didn't work out. Seemed good in high school when I was growing up in Brooklyn, but that didn't work out. But what happened was during that time, while at college at UB, we started our own business called Two Men in a Big Truck. So
let me guess, 2 guys and you had a big truck.
Exactly.
Okay. See?
Right. It was real. It was one of the Penske trucks, the big backs, all that stuff. The largest one we could operate without having a different. Yeah. So the goal for that was we just knew coming up and down from Brooklyn to Buffalo was always a hassle.
Oh, yeah.
So when school was over, we didn't live here. We took all our stuff. We left. UB would really kick you out the dorms, and that's it. So
and Buffalo, UB, for those listening abroad, UB's got a huge contingent of students from the Long Island, Brooklyn, New York City area.
Absolutely,
because it's the furthest you can get away from mom and dad, but still be in a state school.
And still be a state school, so it's very affordable for mom, and that's exactly why my mom sent me here. So we noticed that, hey, if we were having this issue, how many other people were having this issue as well too? And apparently it was a lot. And then it budded from taking the Penske truck all the way down to the city to now stopping in different cities along the 90.
Yeah.
Right. To now
to pick up stuff.
Right. To pick up stuff either on the way up to school at the start or when school was done. Then even to right before school finished, people were moving into houses.
Yeah.
So hey, can you do that for us? Yeah. So then we added that. So from that business that grew, then we flipped the truck on the 91 day. So it's just like, I
gotta give you huge credit because I moved a buddy of mine to New York, to Brooklyn about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
In a U-Haul we rented, and that was the most nerve-wracking thing aside from my kids being born that I've ever experienced in my life.
Yeah.
Like I any moment I thought I was going to die just trying to navigate through a U-Haul through New York City.
It's trust me, you have to, if you know how to drive in New York, then you know how to drive anywhere, and you can drive anything. Yeah. Trust me. So so that was that. We started that business. Then we did a DJ business. Saw the need in that through different colleges up in Western New York. Started DJing. So it's been there, but I never tapped into it until roughly when I left local college I was working at.
Okay.
So that would have been my corporate experience. Okay. Out of UB with my master's in the field working, but things weren't clicking.
So what was it? What was kind of the aha moment, like when you kind of discovered this gap with millennials? Mm-hmm. And you thought, okay, maybe I have an idea to do something here.
It's funny because it was two. It was two aha moments that actually led to the one thing. So it was while working at this local college, I was the youngest in the department. I was creating content already, right? So instructional designer, course content developer, making the courses for the students to learn. Up until the point where I'm sitting in the cafeteria with students, because I'm still one of the youngest in the department, and hearing that the students didn't like the courses. And so, just moseyed on over, them thinking I'm a student. They're saying, it's not for us. Like, I get it. We can get the material, but they make it as if it's not relatable. And I'm like, okay, gotcha. Took that back to the department, nothing. Right. So, long story short, parted ways. Then I said, I can do this on my own. With all the knowledge I've taken over these years, I can do this on my own. So I started freelancing, got my first client. Then I was like, okay, client said, loved it. You know what? We want you. You can create the content. You're making it for the demographic we want. So one, that made sense. So I was making the right content. But then they said, we can't continue. And I said, why? Biggest reason is because their clientele, they didn't have access to the internet. So mostly what they had, huge digital divide. Yeah. So mostly what they had was access to mobile devices, smartphones. And so they were like, we can't really source this out. It would be easier if you had a platform that we can use to do it. Yeah. And then so Graspie was born from that.
Wow. Yeah. And you mentioned the digital divide. In Buffalo especially, you just see it so much where there's a huge portion of the population. And I covered this in news a few times. A huge portion of the population that they have access to internet, but it's not reliable internet.
Right.
It's not fast internet. It's
Right.
certainly not fast enough to do more and more homework is becoming internet intensive,
Right.
and it's just not reliable enough for these kids to be doing their work on a
Right.
day-to-day basis. But everyone's got a phone.
Yes, and that's the thing. Going through this whole process with the startup, you learn there's facts. There's huge things you learn, and mobile devices account for a huge portion of searches and data research for those who don't have a standard internet connection in their home, right? So it's big. So it's a larger issue, than people realize. So, but for us, it's like, okay, if this is what's going on, how can we help, with what people have? And so, again, we push forward with that with Graspie.
So with Graspie, who are you focusing on in the immediate? Like, who is the ideal user for the platform?
Right. So again, when we say millennials, that could be anybody, right? Ultimately, the goal is for everybody,
Sure.
not just millennials, to be able to use this. But we're starting out where we know there's a high concentration. So food, retail, so those businesses. Because ultimately, we're not selling directly to the millennial. We're selling to the business that hires the millennial. So it's got to be those businesses in the food, the retail that we started out with saying, hey, we're hiring these guys, we can't train them the same way, so we want something that they can take to. And it also fosters engagement. And so that's a big thing as well in the workplace, on the HR, on the business side. If your employee is disengaged, it ultimately leads after a while to turnovers. And turnovers have been costing companies billions of dollars in loss and revenue. So they see that like, okay, well, you're making a platform where the content is created for the millennial, and millennials are always on their devices anyways, so this seems to be a good fit. And so that's how we're tackling. That's the approach, and so that's why we started out there. But funny enough, there are other industries that have been like, well, we don't have that many millennials, but we need our employees to do things quicker. Taking them off the job site or the floor or whatever, it kind of hinders our progress. But if we can keep them there, and we know they already have their phones and they can access content that we need them to do while on their phone in your platform, that can work too. So we're seeing a lot of crossover already.
So what kind of content are you able to publish to the app that these employees will eventually be able to train off of?
Right. So what we're starting out to do is those onboarding tools. So we're doing diversity and inclusion, sexual harassment, anti-bullying, ergonomics.
All things that are not in the news these days.
Right.
So
right. So it's just
we've all trained perfectly on all those topics.
Right. But, it's one of those things that there's a huge push, right?
Absolutely.
So, we're making those offerings available immediately. So that way what happens is the platform on a whole, the goal is for you to take that platform and design the content yourself, right? We're making it easy. We're using some of the tactics that a lot of the big boys, the big players are using when it comes to a real unique style in design. And so we're doing it that way, and then from there, those specific pieces. But the goal is for the company to actually build whatever kind of training content they want, specifically for a mobile device, and in a dynamic way that it speaks to the almost every type of learner.
I assume it's fluid enough where, we need to update this course, bing, bang, boom, upload it, everything's fine.
Absolutely. And that's the beauty of the actual platform. So you can actually have the content already there. You can edit it as you see fit. And then still, again, instant publishing, instant access on the phone, which a lot of platforms, when you they're called learn management systems, don't actually have. So, you have to always, you wait to get to the work to actually take the trainings, but with this kind of platform, hey, the trainings are actually put to your mobile device, and you take them when you're ready.
Have you been able to identify kind of a market size for a service like this?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's beautiful because we're focusing on a small business, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So we're saying, okay, the companies have to be 150 employees minimum, but we don't want them more than 300 to 350, only because the larger company size, the more likely they already have learn management departments already implemented. So it's really
so your
not
Targets
a
and
value for
Walmarts
them.
aren't going to be the ideal customer for what you're trying
Surprisingly, we actually sat down with former executive of a Best Buy.
Okay.
And then he was like, that this platform would be great for content that we build ourselves for the stores. So, there's always the overarching,
so you look at it,
right. There's always overarching content that you have to know about the products that Best Buy would push out. But then store managers, all of those district directors, they may want to say, hey, this is how we're going to function as a unit, right? Because if you've ever worked at like a Best Buy Circuit City, they have their own, internal competitions.
Yep.
Who's the best store? How are they doing this? What's working at this store versus that? And that comes down to the trainings that they're giving internally. And so that's where we would have been of value to them. So but we want to focus on that smaller market.
Yeah, in my several previous lives ago, I was a back of house manager at Apple, so I know full well about the competing with the other stores down the 90 about everything.
I used to work at Best Buy and I used to work at Circuit City during my college years, so I definitely know that.
So when, how do I want to phrase the question? That's always the best part. So how soon is the development of something like this? Is it already available? Is it?
Right. So we're still in development right now. We have testers ready, standby businesses, some actual notable businesses here in the Buffalo area as well too, who want to jump on board. Big ones in the food and hospitality that a lot of people do know, and some smaller ones that some people don't know. So we will be geared up to go for full-scale testing and beta in the coming weeks. And then so we're looking for early second quarter 2018 actual launch.
What's the competition look like in this space for what you're trying to do?
We have one direct that we've noticed competitor out there, but several competitors in general. The only reason because training and then engagement is a huge space, right?
Yeah.
So you have the big boy players, Blackboard, Moodle, D2L, but they're sourcing a platform for you to just do your own thing.
Right.
Then you have some fabulous companies that I've followed, like Grovo and Litmus, who are also, those kind of big boy competitors as well too. But I guess for us, we're being real strategic, right? Focusing on the millennial, focusing on the design, focusing on how people are using mobile devices right now in their everyday life, right? We already know it's, for a lot of people, it's an extension of themselves.
Sure.
So if we can add something into that extension, that's where we'll have the most success. And that's why we're building a mobile platform versus saying, hey, sit behind a computer for an hour or 2 hours to take a training. No, we want you to sit behind your phone while you're walking, while you're on the pooper, while you're taking a bus or whatever the case may be for about, 5 to 7 minutes. And you take your training that way. But if you don't want to take it, then you're at the liberty to take it at any time you want, right?
What do you need as a startup? You never know who's listening. You never know whose wallet is looking for an investment. Well, so what are kind of some of the immediate needs for Graspie?
I mean, everybody would always say funding, but for us, we know that content is key. Right, we don't want to just design these trainings in a manner where, hey, they remind everybody else of every other.
It's just
other
a digital
platform.
version of something that did in the 80s. It's like, that's not going to work.
That's not going to work. We want to, if I can put it this way, which I think is the best way, we want to develop the content almost as dynamically as Snapchat Discover, where at some points, you don't even realize it's content. You're just so immersed into it. You're using all your senses, right, to actually absorb this. And when you walk away from some of the brands on Snapchat Discover, like Times Magazine, National Geographics, you just realize that you've consumed a lot of information and you learned more, all without actually somebody saying, hey, you're learning, right? And so that's the kind of thing we're looking for graphic designers to add on to the team. We're looking for copy writers and editors to make sure that, the verbiage is always correct. more importantly, we're just looking for champions. Those people who want to sit down with us, listen to what we're doing, and if they love us, help us out to get to the next level. And I think from there, with those pieces, we think funding will come. And it's coming, and it's coming.
It's always good, right?
Yeah, it's that's always good. Especially from where we've been. The length of time where, it's only been about 1.5 years, 2 years. It feels like forever,
Sure.
But a lot of things are actually hitting now because we've hit a lot of milestones, and so it's phenomenal to see where we're gonna go.
So you're Buffalo by way of Brooklyn.
Yeah, man, Brooklyn boy, through and through.
Why? So on that note, why still Buffalo? Why? What is it about Buffalo? I mean, Brooklyn's got its own startup scene too.
Huge now.
Exactly. So why Buffalo?
You know what? That's the question even my mother asks me, and she's still.
Well, you
in
sent
Brooklyn.
me here for college, Mom.
Right? Yeah, she's still in Brooklyn. Still, I mean, I tell everybody else, I have a Brooklyn cap on right now. I don't know. No, I can't even say I don't know. Buffalo's been good to me, right? It's once I was here before this whole scene was here in terms of like 43 North, the building.
Yep.
Z80 was still around, but they were in a different building. So I actually started the path here, and upon starting the path here, a lot of things clicked. Started at Dig. Dig gave me a business scholarship, which kind of pushed me forward. Then the Buffalo Urban League actually granted me my first initial funding, believing in me, and then everything started clicking. People were looking at us. Just saying, hey, you know what, these guys are doing something great. And then from there, it was like, you know what, this is a community that's growing. Can I be a big fish in a small pond here, or would I rather be a guppy in an ocean back home in Brooklyn? And not even Brooklyn, it's just New York City as a whole, right? So not to take anything away from that, but what I realized was as the startup scene and community was growing here, I realized how much ties were already down in New York City that a lot of people had up here, a lot of heavyweights had up here, and they as you were going through the process, they were actually pulling those startups who were making it and saying, hey, we got some people down in New York that you need to meet. And so for me, it's like, you know what, stay here. Your successes have been here, they're growing here, and it's a great place to actually build and then scale. And then move, make it a worldwide company. So,
and some of the successful business folks, the Jordan Levies will tell you that New York's a 45-minute flight away.
Absolutely,
you can leave the first flight out and still make it home for dinner if you need to.
Or if you're like me, it's a 5.5-hour drive.
You'll get to the point where you can fly regularly,
right?
I promise. Based on we all believe in you, so.
Right.
So if people want to learn more,
right,
or somehow get involved, what can they do?
They can look us up, right? We're in the age of Google. You can find me anywhere. Graspie, www.graspie.com. You can find me on Twitter, Mr. DAP _ Mr. DAP. You can, you can find me at Dig, here on the Innovation Center, on the medical campus. I am always here. Literally, I feel like I should have a bed at times here. But so Graspie.com. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn, all of that stuff. So
the usual suspects.
Yeah, the usual suspects. And again, you can definitely reach out to me via email. Can I say my email?
You should, if it's up to you if you want to.
So that's DAP@Graspie.com, and I can let you know more. I want to tell everybody more about what we're doing. It's big. And if I can throw something in there, what I really love about Buffalo as well, too, right now, there's an emergence of minority startups that are growing here, and Buffalo's trying to support them. It's huge. If you look at the numbers when it comes to funding, in the United States for minority and female startups. And what you see going on in Buffalo locally is amazing. So that's another reason why I'm still here, but this is a great ecosystem. It's a builder, and I think a lot of people who start here will all ultimately become success stories.
Well, we'll check in with you down the road, and hopefully things are proceeding.
No,
as
it
you
will be.
expect.
Yeah, I know it will be. I know with the culture that's here, with the people around us supporting us, I know we'll definitely be one of those success stories. So
Thanks for coming on, Derrick.
thank you.
Talk to you soon.